magical music, shaking up the houses, and you'll never guess what else on today's edition of the Use Your Head podcast. Coming to you from Dallas, Texas, this is the Use Your Head podcast, Season 1, Episode 6. I'm your host, John McLean, your friend, your buddy, your pal. Thank you for being along on the show where we sift through all of the modern narrative and all the things that you're told to think about this, that, and the other thing, and we filter it through our human ability to use logic and sense and use our head to think for ourselves as free and independent human beings. There's a lot. It's a ripe field. I say that all the time. I mean, every week I sift through different websites and places where I source, what's going on in the world. Not cable news, not broadcast news, but sources that I have learned over the years to trust that don't have the agendas that certain other outlets have. And I use my head, and a lot of the time, the things that these expert and analysts, these pundits, these evaluators, doesn't make sense what they say a lot. And so the Use Your Head podcast was born. We're available everywhere, wherever you get your content. You have found us. I'm glad. If you'd like to interact with the show, with me, you can contact me easily through your email box. The address is useyourheadpodcast.com and then put a John at in front of it. John at useyourheadpodcast.com. Got a note, by the way, I got a couple notes actually. Is there going to be a website? Yes. Haven't built it yet. Don't know what I'm going to do yet. It's going to be simple. But yeah, I'm going to do a website eventually. I'm working on that. I've got a lot going on, as we've talked about. Won't go through that today, but in any event, yes, there'll be a website. But for right now, just email me, John at useyourheadpodcast.com. Feel free, by the way, to record yourself on your phone or whatever. Send me a file. I'd love to put you on the show and we can interact. And that would be fun. Do it anytime. And thanks for listening today. Several topics to get to, and so we will get right on it. Topic number 1 today, real estate shakeup. There has been a major change in how realtors earn a living. But is it fair? Got some interesting perspective on this from my cousin. I'll get to that later, but there's a really good article that kind of sums it up in the Daily Mail over in the UK, written by Alice Wright for dailymail.com. Have you heard about this? This is, all right, the real estate market is massive, all right, and right now prices are high and they fluctuate based on a number of factors. Supply and demand is key, and so in places that are in high demand, housing prices are higher, and when that is coupled with a low supply of listings, it's really expensive. And when I moved back to Texas a couple of 3 years ago, I experienced extremely inflated real estate prices because of the market. Everybody wanted to move here, and there weren't very many listings. And so there was a lot of price wars and bidding wars and people, shooting for the moon and getting it in many cases. It's called economics, and it's perfectly fine. But the realtors, the agent, all right, your real estate agent, they're called realtors. And you'll notice when they refer to themselves as realtors, that word is capitalized because to be a realtor, you have to be a member of the club. And we're going to talk about that today. This is a major story. I don't know if you've heard about this. But anyway, Alice Wright for dailymail.com writes this: dramatic new rules overhauling the way realtors are paid for helping to sell or buy a home come into force today. And this was written on August 17th. So this was a number of days ago. So they're in effect now. The changes, the most dramatic to hit the industry for a century, overturns the system of notorious commission payments levied by real estate agents. Now, I just want to stop right here. Ms. Wright, that is notorious. Have you ever tried to sell a home or help someone buy a home? Notorious commission payments? Okay. I guess you have the right to your opinion. Before August 17th, an agent working on behalf of a seller would charge their clients a fee of around 5 or 6%, far more than almost anywhere else in the world. So what? We don't have to hold up to a standard with the rest of the world. We do things the way we do things here. Okay, for example, the article continues. Easy math here. For example, selling a home worth $1 million would rake in $60,000 in commission for the selling agent involved. That fee was then usually shared with the buyer's own real estate agent. So, look, if you've never bought a home before, this may all be new to you. My wife and I, as I've mentioned before, have been somewhat nomadic. We've moved, across the country a couple times. We've bought and sold multiple homes throughout our lives. So I hesitate to use the word comfortable because it's a huge purchase. And so there's always nerves and, there's always 1,000 things that can go like you didn't expect and you have to be prepared and all that kind of thing. But, look, this is the way that it's done. Typically, you expect for each agent to take 3%. They usually will split it. Now, they can do a number of things to, they can negotiate. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because that's going to be happening essentially every time now. But typically 6% was the total commission and then the two agents would split it. That's typically what has happened in most of the transactions that Jan and I have been involved in when we've bought and sold homes. Okay. And so, yes, that's a lot of money. So if it's a $1 million home, then the total commission would be $60,000. And you would think each one, if they agree to split it halvesies, that'd be $30,000 a piece. Not bad money, right? Or is it? These fees became baked into house prices, helping to inflate values, and realtors pushed buyers towards homes with larger commissions. Duh. Right? I mean, look, if you're selling a car, would you rather sell someone the $75,000 luxury sedan or the $18,000 8-year-old economy car? Well, if they can afford it, and the financing, of course you're going to try to sell the more expensive car. That's economics. There's nothing wrong with that. And the color of this article seems to imply that there is, that somehow trying to earn more money, and I'm not talking about bilking people or cheating or defrauding. That's not happening here. It's all in the contract. If you sign a contract that says you're going to pay a real estate agent 3%, 5%, 6%, whatever the number, and you sign it, it's fair. All right? If you sign it, it's fair. You can't complain. If you don't think it's fair, don't sign it. Go find another deal. Anyway, moving on. There's been a series of lawsuits, the article continues, that argued that this practice violated antitrust laws by allowing brokers to collude in order to raise commission prices. The National Association of Realtors, NAR, settled for $418 million and agreed to amend the rules in this massive lawsuit. All right, so here are the rules changes. All right, the first change will stop real estate agents from, that was my chair, I'm sorry, I need to oil my chair. The first change will stop agents from putting compensation information on the so-called multiple listing services. This is the MLS. So if you've ever been involved in buying or selling a home, then you know what the MLS is. The MLS is this big database, and only realtors have access to it. Now, they can give you access to it if they choose, but you cannot, like when you go on to, Realtor.com or Zillow, you're not really having access to the MLS. You're getting certain bits and pieces, but you don't have access to the actual MLS, which contains tons of data on every property. I mean, it's an exhaustive, comprehensive database, all right? But realtors have access to this if they're members of NAR, which is the only way they can really call themselves a realtor. Only fee, here the article says this right here, only fee-paying members of the NAR are allowed to call themselves realtors, and only they can access MLS. Or I just said that. Now, let's think about this. The article doesn't, I just gave it away. The article doesn't say the word union, but that's what the NAR is. All right. The NAR is an organization that represents the interests of realtors and provides them certain things to help them do their jobs. And in exchange, charges a big time fee. I don't know what the fee is. They don't tell people. But that's the deal. If you're a realtor, you know what the fee is. And I have someone close to me that's a realtor, and he won't tell me. I told him, don't tell me what the fee is. I don't want to know anything I'm not supposed to know. But suffice it to say, it's a lot. Okay. But look, it's like SAG-AFTRA. It's like any union. If you want to be in the union, all right, then you want to do that job and be in the union, you got to pay the dues. And in exchange, hopefully you get representation and hopefully you get some perks. Okay. Now that in theory, all right, so what this article is saying that, being a member of this union in theory enabled the buyer's agent to steer buyers to houses on which the commission is higher. and through which they can profit more in the event of a sale. Once again, what is wrong with that? I mean, I don't know any realtor that's doing it just because I love houses and I love showing houses and I love doing contracts. It's so fun to work on Saturday and miss my kid's soccer game because I've got a deal I need to do. No, they do it to earn a living. All right. They're doing it to earn a living. All right. It's acting like there's something I can't stand this idea that going out and trying to earn the best living you can, working hard, studying, investing. So these agents, again, most of these agents are independent contractors. They're salespeople. So they're paying for their license fees. They're paying for the membership in the union. They're paying for the signs they stick in the yard. They're paying for the gas that they're paying for the vehicle that they're wearing out driving. They're paying for all this stuff. All right. They are investing so that they can earn and maximize their income. There is nothing wrong with that as long as you're doing it within the confines of the law. Ethics, okay? I don't see anything unethical about any of this. However, they got sued. All right, so the compensation details can still be shared, but they got to be done in person over the phone. So what they're essentially doing is they're taking the commission information and the compensation information for the agent or the realtor, and they're saying you can't put that on the MLS. You can't put that on the web, okay? You can't publish it. You've got to do it over the phone in person. And what they're saying is by not having that available to the body of realtors, all right, of everyone in the NAR, then it allows them to not be able to collude. Okay, now this whole collusion thing seems silly to me. This is where I'm going to use my head and go, all right, let's take 5 realtors, and it doesn't matter the market. So let's say some of them are in a bigger market, some of them are in a smaller market, but they're realtors, all right? They're out there trying to help home buyers and or home sellers, depending on who they're representing. And they're trying to get them in a home and work out the details, okay? Why would I collude with someone else who really is my competitor, right? I mean, anybody in real estate will tell you it's pretty competitive business, all right? They're out there, tug of warring over the best listings because the best listings bring the best prices, which used to be would bring the bigger commissions. So there's a natural competition there. When I studied economics, and I used my head a lot when I did, competition would lower prices. All right, why would I collude with someone? I don't, and look, I can see if you had a couple of unethical agents, they're like, hey, you know what? Let's collude with each other. We can raise the prices, the market price of real estate, and then we'll clear a few more thou. But that doesn't make sense practically. I mean, when I drive around the communities in Dallas and I see, there's a home for sale, and there's not many right now. All right, seeing a for sale sign is actually an event. Oh, there's one right there for sale. Its listings are low right now. It doesn't make a lot of sense if I'm an agent to collude with my competitor. I mean, I could see that maybe happening, but we have rules against that kind of thing already. Anyway, this is a very strange argument that's being made here. Real estate prices are high because of supply and demand. Period. All right. That's what causes prices to go up and down, unless the government gets involved. Like we're hearing a certain candidate is thinking about monkeying with prices. That's a whole nother topic, and we'll probably get to that in the coming weeks. But look, it's competition, all right? Supply and demand. If you've got not many listings and a whole lot of buyers, the prices are going to go up, 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 up. That's just the way it is. On the other hand, if you've got, if half of the houses on every street are on the market and nobody wants to move to your town, you can score real estate cheap, okay? It's not complicated. All right, so here's the second rule change. All right, the first one is if you're going to talk commissions and so forth and compensation, you got to do it over the phone. You can't publish it online on the MLS. Here's the other one. The Second Amendment to the rules, the article continues, says that it requires that buyer's agents be upfront about their compensation. After August 17th, so now, the agent and a prospective home buyer must enter into a written agreement together before even touring a property for sale. Think about that. Have you ever been house hunting? and you see one, oh, I like that one, Marge. Write down the number on that sign. You might grab the flyer out of the little deal there, and you call the agent. You can't talk compensation until you have a written agreement. All right, I'm using my head, putting myself in the shoes of a real estate agent, and I'm thinking, how many people, when you're house hunting, I mean, there's different levels. Look, if you're homeless and you need a place to live, then you're a motivated buyer. But a lot of buyers aren't motivated. A lot of them are thinking, oh, you know what? I've been thinking about getting a new home, or I've been thinking about trying to get into this side of town, or getting closer to the office or something like that. Are you going to be willing to sit down and sign agreements before you even see the place? No, the first thing you do is you call the agent and they say, oh, you know what? I could be by there at 6 o'clock tonight and open it up and let you walk through it. And I'd love to show it to you. And then you build interest, and then maybe they might want to write an offer. But no, the new rule says that before you're even allowed to show them the home, you got to have a written agreement about the commission. Some analysts, the article continues, argue the changes will give prospective buyers more power to negotiate with real estate agents during the process. All right, maybe. Buyers will decide through negotiation how much to pay their agents, home and mortgage expert Holden Lewis explained. But that doesn't mean that buyers have to pay their agents out of pocket. They can ask sellers to chip in on some or all the commission of the buyer's agent, and that's always been true. All right, real estate deals are just deals. You can put virtually anything you want. Who's going to pay the closing costs? Who's going to pay the commissions? All of that. But now, to me, this handcuffs an agent. All right, this takes away a lot of business from the realtor. Because now, if I'm house hunting and I'm just thinking about maybe buying a home, which is where most house hunters are, by the way, they're thinking about maybe, if I find the right deal and I just fall in love with it, and that's the agent's job, is to get you to fall in love with it, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's called sales. Now you got to say, well, before I can open the door and show you the home, you've got to sign this agreement saying that this is what I'll get paid if you decide to go forward with the contract. Most buyers are going to say, you know what? That's okay. And it's going to take away a lot of business. All right. So these are the two new rules, that are supposed to make real estate more fair. All right. I want to talk about my cousin. I won't mention his name, but he works in a small market as a real estate agent. He and I took a road trip together recently, and he explained his frustration. All right, and look, if you're working in a big city like Dallas, and let's say you've got listings in really upscale, $1 million, north of $1 million, which here is a lot of money. If you're in LA, you're going, big deal. You can't get anything for $1 million. Here, you can get a lot for that. Not as much as you used to. But anyway, he works in a town where you've got to sell to make a meager amount of money because it's a percentage commission most of the time. He said that he's thinking about hanging up his license because these new rules are going to make it almost impossible for him to ever show a home. Most people, when you say, well, yeah, we got to come to a deal on my compensation if you got to sign something before I can show the home, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They don't want to commit to anything that early. And here's the other thing he told me. Before you start complaining about $30,000 or $60,000 for what? For a lot. Okay. First of all, there's tons of overhead in the real estate business. And again, I'm using my head and I've never been a real estate agent. I don't want to be because I know what goes into it. There's a ton of overhead. All right. There's marketing expense. And once again, even if you work for one of these brokerage houses like Century 21, or even if you work for one of those, they'll help you. They all have programs, but usually you got to pay them back and you have to market yourself. All right. You have to buy clothes in real estate. You have to look professional. You have to have a nice vehicle that's comfortable because sometimes you'll be schlepping your clients to and from places. I mean, you have to look successful. You have to dress the part. And, oh, by the way, you've got to pay dues to the National Association of Realtors, union dues. Okay. You've got to pay usually fees to your brokerage if you have one. There's a ton of overhead involved. Okay. And oh, by the way, as an independent contractor, you've got to pay double taxes. Just like if you own your own business, you're going, oh, amen, brother. I know what you mean. You got to pay the employer and the employee part. You got to pay both. Okay. All this to say By the time you chip away at that, say, $30,000 commission check, you're not taking home all that much. Most of it's already spent, or it's going to be to Uncle Sam. Okay? And sometimes you have to hire a lawyer. And sometimes if there is a dispute and you have to go to court, you got to sit in court for 4 hours. You can't sell houses if you're sitting in court. So look, it's not just raking in money for opening the door and going, well, can't you see yourself in this home right now? There is a lot of work, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of contracts, a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of work. Okay, these people earn their money, and people need to stop picking on them for demanding that they be paid fairly. All right? I have bought multiple homes, and I've sold multiple homes in my life, and I have paid some high commissions. I have never felt ripped off because I see the work that these people do. They work very, very, very hard. But now, with these new rules, a lot of them are going to be like, you know what? I'm going to go do something else. It's not worth it anymore. It's a sad state of affairs. This is the Use Your Head podcast. We spend a lot of time on that, but that's such a huge thing. Real estate is a massive part of our economy, and this is a seismic shift in how business is going to be done. If you're a realtor or used to be, let me know. Write me at John at useyourheadpodcast.com. John at useyourheadpodcast.com. Topic number 2, the magic of music. You know, music, they say, soothes the savage breast. I love that saying. I've always loved that because it's true. But it does much more, and now science is starting to catch up with this idea. Found an article from Medical News Today written by Jessica Freeborn, and like a lot of quality medical journals, this one was fact-checked by Dr. Jill Salati-Schulman. So this has been a fact-checked article. It's entitled, Study Uncovers Some Underlying Reasons Why Music Therapy Helps Treat Depression. Using music to help treat mental illness is one focus of mental illness research. Experts are interested in understanding music therapy and how to achieve the best results from its use. A study published in Cell Reports looked at some of the underlying mechanisms involved in the effectiveness of music therapy as a treatment for depression. The researchers found that subjective enjoyment was a key factor in seeing an effective response in participants with treatment-resistant depression. So let's stop right here. Look, depression's an epidemic. All right, we have people that are on all kinds of drugs and therapy for depression. All right, the world's a tough place. There's lots of stress, lots of anxiety, all of that. So we got all these people that are struggling with depression. It's a serious disease. But some of them don't respond to the therapy. And some of them take the drugs and it just wipes them out, but they're still depressed. Doesn't help. Music therapy is emerging as something that is very effective on those treatment-resistant depression patients. The article continues, the results further highlight the underlying reasons why music therapy is helpful and what steps could enhance its effectiveness. This research involved 23 participants who had treatment-resistant depression. This is depression that doesn't respond to typical first-line treatments. All participants were between 18 and 65, so we're talking a wide swath, all right, the old broadcasting spectrum, 18 to 65. Researchers wanted to understand more about how the brain responded to music in these participants. Researchers looked at the effect of music on 2 key areas of the brain, the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis, BNST, and the nucleus accumbens, NAC. The study notes that both areas are related to the brain's reward circuitry and emotions. They also explain that the brain's auditory cortex takes music and then activates the brain's reward circuitry to create an emotional response. Isn't that fascinating? All participants had implanted electrodes in the circuit. Researchers used these in their data collection as well as temporal scalp electroencephalogram, EEG. You've had one of those, right, where they stick the little deals on your head to collect information on brain activity. Thus, they were able to collect data on different areas of brain activity, cortical and subcortical areas. I love the fact that they're not just interviewing these patients. Well, how are you feeling? They have hard data, all right? They're wiring them up and they're checking the results. And so this is not judgment here. This is looking at hard data and seeing the power, the magic if you will, of music. This article, by the way, goes into a lot of stuff that, frankly, I don't understand. It's over my head. Again, this is a medical journal, so it kind of starts getting into the stuff that you kind of need a degree to understand. Here's one thing I do understand. I have a nephew, and he is young, and he is a soldier. He's been in the Army for a few years. He was stationed up north where he was on an operation in the Arctic, and he slipped on some ice and suffered a traumatic brain injury. It's very frightening. In fact, he was put on medical leave for a time and on restricted duty. They were talking about discharging him, and he said, no, I want to stay in. What can I do? And he got involved in music therapy in his town where his base was. And so successful was this in helping him recover from the effects of this brain injury that he had, that he was interviewed by the National Association of the Arts, who they were fascinated by this. And he was interviewed and he just gushed. And I've talked to him one-on-one about this. He said, it changed my life in a way that's hard for me to describe. It reached inside my mind and unlocked a lot of the effects of this brain injury. And it has helped with his headaches. It has helped, there's a lot of physical symptoms. There's a lot of emotional symptoms too. The music therapy has helped with all of it. And there's a lot of different ways they do this. Sometimes they have you listen to certain types of music, and a lot of it's classical music, but not all. In his case, my nephew's case, they put him in a band. They put him with some other people that were suffering a similar situation and had them create music. And so he sat behind a drum kit. And not only did they have a great time making music together, and as someone who's been in a couple of bands in my life, I can tell you there's no thrill quite like it. It's a lot of fun. But he has not only saved his career, he's now advancing in the military. They said, you know what, we're going to keep you now. They're putting him in a new school, and it's changed his life. The power of music. This is fascinating to me. And, I've often, I've known a lot of people that have had various types of mental difficulties, from, different modes of autism to things like just high anxiety, different types of issues, ADHD, things like that. And I see them take these pills. Okay. Now I'm going to be careful here because I know that these medications have helped a lot of people and enabled them to cope with things that they struggle with. And so, look, if you're popping a pill and it's doing it for you, good for you. That's great. But I think sometimes it doesn't have to be that complicated because these pills are expensive. They often have side effects. As long as you don't turn your headphones up too high, music's not going to have a side effect. All right? It has the power to reach into the mind, into the soul, the spirit of the patient, and unleash an amazing result. In addition to my nephew, I was invited last year to attend a fundraising banquet event for an organization here in Dallas called KidLinks, kidlinks.org, if you want to look online. This is a fantastic organization that helps children who are struggling with a myriad of emotional and mental difficulties and uses different types of music therapy to change their lives. And at this banquet I went to, it was a fundraising auction thing, like very fun. We heard testimonies from parents and grandparents about how their children were locked out of the world around them. And thanks to the work of KidLinks and music therapy, they now are in, and they're discovering themselves and building a life. It was so inspiring and heartwarming, and certainly something worth looking into. Music therapy. It is a relatively new field. At least it's, I think in its infancy, it was kind of laughed off. Music, you can't do music. Come on. Now we have research and the ability, frankly, because of technology to codify some of this research in a more scientific way. We're able to now see that music therapy, it's no joke. This is something that has virtually zero side effects and is accessible to almost everybody. And in fact, at KidLinks, they had partnered with SMU, with Southern Methodist University there in Dallas, and the university was letting them use some of their facilities to facilitate their different therapies. Fascinating work, and it's changing lives through the power of music. I have to say, I was blown away by this. I was absolutely blown away by it. So cool. Kidlinks.org if you want to learn more about how you can get involved in supporting work like this. It's really fantastic. Music therapy, the magic of music, helping with mental illness. Fascinating. The Use Your Head podcast goes on. We're going long today. Hope you don't mind. I apologize, but I've got some good stuff here. Last topic number 3, and this one will be shorter. This is AI. You just thought, you were probably wondering, is he going to talk about AI? Of course I am, because AI is affecting us, all of us. Really interesting article here. I've got actually 2 AI stories. First, the filth. And I'm just going to mention this briefly because it's disgusting. And if you don't know about it, I certainly don't want you to go and look for it. But there's a deep fake. There's a series of deep fake. You know what deep fake is? Deep fake is where they take AI, the power of AI, and they put someone's head, usually a celebrity, on the body of someone else and have them say things, do things. Like, remember the Steve Vai story we had? It's deep fake is terrible. It's quite illegal. But the problem is it's happening overseas and it's very hard to get a handle on it. Well, there's a deep fake trend right now where you can see anyone nude. It's filthy. It's disgusting. And there's lawsuits going on. Be careful. Okay. Out there is all I can say. They're being sued. I hope they get wiped out because it's gross. But here's another one. And this AI story is kind of interesting. Employees that are lucky enough to still have a job are not impressed with the AI tools they've been given. So what's happening at a lot of these companies is AI is coming in and they're saying, all right, now listen, all you cube farm dwellers, we need you, but we're going to have you use these new AI tools in your daily job to make you more efficient. You know, last week we talked about this scaling AI to the human worker, right? This idea that we're going to use AI to try to become more computer-like in our work. Anyway, here's an article from Yahoo Finance. Bosses want to use AI to boost productivity, but 77% of employees say it just creates more work. This is written by Emma Burley. Employers have long been touting that AI will make workers' jobs easier by cutting out the busy work and freeing time up for other, more engaging pursuits. But as it turns out, the new tech may be only making their lives harder. Really? Article continues. While the vast majority of C-suite leaders believe AI will increase their company's overall productivity levels, 77% of employees say these tools have only added to their workload, according to a new study from Upwork, a freelancing platform. Part of that is because they're still adapting to the tech, right? The learning curve, right? Around 23% are investing more time to learn how to use the tools. But there are hints that there may be more long-term struggles at play. Around 39% of workers report spending more time reviewing or moderating AI-generated content. And 21% say they're asked to do more as a direct result of AI. Wow, here are 2 huge issues, right? The 39% of workers are saying that they're spending more time reviewing so in other words, say that your boss says, oh, listen, from now on, I want all of your meeting notes to be generated by AI. Okay. You don't need to be spending time on that. And so you use whatever the tool is, you're probably talking to some bot on your screen and saying, hey, take notes for this meeting for me. And then you realize the notes are all jacked up and you need to go through them and make sure they're right. So you're actually are spending the time anyway. Okay. And so they're saying, and you know what, bully for these employees. These are people that care about their work. All right. They're saying, look, the AI stuff we don't trust it. We got to review it. And then sometimes we got to moderate it. We got to fix it. We got to enhance it or correct it or whatever. That's issue number 1. All right. AI is not doing it right, or it's not doing it good enough. It's mailing it in. It's half-assed, if you will. Okay. Now, here, the other issue, the 21% are saying that they're asked to do more as a direct result of AI. This is one of my favorites, okay? You know, these companies are like, yeah, we're going to save so much money. We're going to be more productive per man hour and all that. Oh, you know what that means? We can ask them to do more work now. And so what these employees are saying is that they're getting piled on, that they're saying, well, you know, since we have AI doing part of your job, if you want to stick around here, you're going to have to do a lot more work. And so AI, therefore, has caused their jobs to be more difficult because, as we just discussed, it's really not saving them that much time. And in some cases, probably no time. It is ramping up the frustration, though. All right, back to the article. Beyond the increased workload, staffers are also overwhelmed with higher efficiency expectations stemming from the new technology. Same kind of idea. Around 47% of employees say they have no idea how they're supposed to achieve the productivity gains their bosses expect. And 40% believe their companies are asking too much of them when it comes to AI, the report says. Isn't this interesting? And once again, if the goal of AI is to scale AI to humanity, in other words, to make us be able to work as close to computers as possible by scaling these computers, whether you're talking about these ridiculous clones like we talked about last week, or bringing in tools to the workplace and, take notes for this meeting or write this business letter for me. The employees don't trust it. And the reason they don't trust it is because, yes, okay, it's new, and the article acknowledges that. So when they're going, well, I admit part of it's because I'm trying to learn the tool and get comfortable with it because it's new. All right, fair enough. All right, that's true of any new thing that you introduce into your workflow. That's fair enough. But what they're realizing, and this is the subtext here, use your head and see that what these employees are really seeing, they don't trust this stuff. And the reason they don't is because they've reviewed it and it's not good. All right, it's not good. I was talking to my wife the other day. She sees a lot of resumes come across her desk. Any manager does. And she told me, she laughed, she says, it is becoming so obvious that I can pick out AI resumes. They stick out like a sore thumb. And the more of them I see, the more obvious it is. They are substandard. There's no humanity behind them. All right. And while my wife is very bright, she is just like a lot of managers, a lot of hiring managers. They're seeing cover letters and they're seeing resumes. They're written by computers and they're garbage. They're absolute garbage. They have no humanity behind them. And frankly, they usually have spelling and grammar errors in them because our computers are still learning those types of things. I'm telling you, this is a fascinating, part of it makes me mad, but part of it makes me really happy. Because, look, human being employees are looking at this stuff and going, wait, this isn't even good. All right. And we'll wrap up today's program with this warning. As I was using my head and thinking through this, be careful, employee. If you complain too much, your squeaky wheel might not get the grease. You might get the gate. Because your robo-colleague, substandard work or not, doesn't complain. It also doesn't need vacation or health insurance or any other benefits. It doesn't have to go pick up their kid from school. So be careful. It's a brave new world out there. That's all the time we have. We went over a little bit today, but I think it was worth it. I hope you do too. Tell your friends, and I'll see you next week. Write me in, john@useyourheadpodcast.com. Whatever you do, wherever you go, whatever you read or see, do yourself a favor and use your head. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.